Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cinema A to B. Alec, today for us to discuss is the 2004 Alexander Payne film, Sideways, starring Paul Giamatti and, Mr. Thomas Haden Church. This is a good one, man. I'm gonna hand it right over to you. And what are your thoughts? This movie's now 20 years old.
It actually astounded me when I was looking this up that it was 20 years old. It does not feel that old. I really enjoy this film a lot. And full disclosure, I like most films that are wine related. There's several out there, and for some reason, I like wine a lot. I enjoy the process of it. It's something I've done with my father and my mother a lot, where we open a bottle of wine. My wife and I do it. So like wine really interests me. And this movie just obviously hits it because it talks so much about wine. It also dealt with the San Ynez Valley and Solvang and such, which I've been to multiple times. When I lived in LA, I would go to these places, like recognizes, the roads that they're on, the places they're eating at. So anyways, there's a lot of also kind of nostalgia and just connection to this film. With that said, it's definitely an interesting story, but there is almost no redeemable characters in this. I mean, especially neither Paul Giamatti or Thomas Haden Church are good people. They're like sociopaths in some cases. Like I was like, so I rewatched this and I always remembered it was like it was not great characters, But then as I rewatched this 20 years later, I'm going, oh my goodness, these guys are terrible. They're horrible people. I don't feel bad for them at all, in the slightest, but it makes for an interesting story. And I really like Paul Giamatti. Obviously, he's a close personal friend of mine. We acted together. Yeah. So we've already gone down that story, but I think he's amazing. I know he gets a lot of credit, especially from other actors have kind of seen him work. And I would heap that on him. He's fantastic in this. And Thomas Haden Church is also brilliant, especially kind of as the foil to Paul Giamatti's like anxiety and uptightness. And just Thomas Haden Church is just feel, I don't even know, hippie kind of stuff that he's just like, let's just do it all. I don't care. Like, does it feel good? Let's do it. Kind of a scenario. But the backdrop is absolutely gorgeous. San Ynez Valley is just beautiful. I love it. It's great to see. And then also the talking about wine, good food, all this stuff. It has a lot of the trappings that interest me. So I remember when we talked about the Holdovers, where it was shot like it was supposed to be shot like it felt like it came out in the 70s. Like it was very, very particular. And I know I'm 20 years removed from this film, but even watching it with kind of the mindset of like how I took it in, it even feels like a period piece, even though it's not a period piece. It has kind of some of that care, that meticulous nature of making things. Like it feels like a movie that shouldn't have come out in the, post 1989 or something like that. Or even like, I feel like it almost feels like a 70s movie, the way it's written and the way it's done. And I'll let you talk here in a moment, but it definitely feels like it's out of place in the early 2000s.
I would agree with that.
Oh, okay. I'll take it.
There's some specific reasons for it. I don't know that it's the content necessarily. I think it's the film stock that they're using. And then there's some filtration with on the camera that's creating a lot of highlight blooming where the highlights are super, super soft. And so it almost feels vintage. It might even be a case where they use like vintage lenses, like old glass that has some character. So from that standpoint, it feels almost like 80s, maybe early 90s. I agree with you that there's something quite different with the way it looks, even though they're driving cars that are of the era. But a lot of it too is that they're like, the locations are kind of old. Like they're in a really old hotel. So like the hotel room's like super 80s. Yeah. Very dated. A lot of the restaurants they're in are kind of dated. So that kind of lends to it too. So, and you have that windmill like hotel restaurant. It looks 70s kind of tourist trappy. You know what I mean? So yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that's probably why it feels, I agree. It does not feel like a 2004 picture.
No. And outside of some of these things, I don't think that was Payne's purpose or goal, is to do these stuff because it's definitely not a period piece. I mean, it happens present day at the time. So, but I think it's just some choices they made, like you said, of some of the equipment they used, some of the shot selections, how they edited it all together, that gives it kind of that feel of being.
Well, even the music, some of the music choices of the score is like sort of offbeat, like doesn't really have a specific time period.
Yeah.
And I think with the film stock in kind of the highlight blooming infiltration, I think the goal there really is just to make Wine Country look as good as it can. And I think they completely accomplish that. Like they shoot varying times of day. They shoot a lot of golden hour. One of my favorite scenes is where Giamatti's just had it and is just uncorking an entire bottle of wine and running down that hill. Not only is it funny, but it's gorgeous. Like he's running down into these gorgeous, this gorgeous vineyard, these rows of grapes. And Thomas Hayden Church, come back, It's after he's told him like his ex is getting married
or has been married, actually. Got
married. Yeah. And he's just feels completely betrayed. And he's just going to, he just pulls the cork right out of the bottle with his mouth and runs. This movie's a riot. It's an absolute riot. Just when you think like Thomas Hayden Church's character can't get any more depraved, he has one final big send off with the gallon, the server, the waitress in the restaurant. You don't understand my plight.
I love how he talks, because Paul Giamatti's character is codependent with it. I mean, gets easily talked into these stupid schemes that Thomas Hayden Church's character has, and where he's just like, "You need to go get my wallet from the house that I was sleeping with the wife of this guy." Yeah, she's married, and he's just like, "Well, I do it, but I hurt my ankle," and then he starts kind of crying, all this stuff, like, I love her so much. And it's just like, do you really though? Again, these are terrible people, both of them. Oh yeah,
but the rings were in the wallet.
Oh yeah,
the stuff guys do for their bros.
Yeah,
and he makes him wreck the car.
Well, no, it doesn't make him wreck the car.
He doesn't. Yeah,
he drives into the tree.
Like, can I drive?
and then my favorite is when he puts the brick down and it misses the tree and goes in the ditch.
Yes. The humor in this is kind of a little bit offbeat, but and obviously the iconic "I'm not drinking any effing Merlot" is just and it hurt Merlot's sales too.
Yes, and 2004, 2005, Pinot Noir sales skyrocketed, Merlot sales. I can't tell you another film that had the effect on wine like this movie did. It truly hit. Now, Merlot has jumped back and gone back to, I think, where
I'm still not drinking any Merlot though.
And do you know why? Is it just because Sideways told you?
No, I didn't like Merlot. I didn't like Merlot even before this movie.
No,
I didn't care for
drink a Merlot when I can drink a cab. But anyways,
it's just not complex. Yeah, it's just not complex enough. Let's just establish that.
So
go ahead. The lines in this movie, though.
The lines we're going to do this, but here's one of the fun parts is, and I'm not going to talk too much wine because I could definitely talk some wine, but my favorite part of this film is that his prized possession, the bottle that he's waiting, his 61 whatever, is a blend of Merlot and Cab Franc, which
that's funny.
Which is the two varietals he hates, because he talks about Cab Franc because he dumps it out. He's just like, I always think they're over whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't like it, and then dumps it out. But yet that's exactly what your prized bottle is. And of course he loves it because he's sitting there eating his burger, drinks, and he's just like, oh, and he just kind of does that face of this is amazing. Mm-hmm. So
by the way,
don't be
the last viewing I did of this, Gwen and I were watching. Gwen had decided to throw it on. This is a couple weeks back, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I told her, I said, at face value, that doesn't look like a super impressive pairing, that bottle with that cheeseburger. But if you really start to think about it, it's a pretty good pairing. Yeah. If you're not going to do the steak, a really killer burger and a good red.
Oh, yeah, that red's gonna strip all those juicy fats from your tongue. You taste that burger much better.
One of my favorite. Anyways. I have so many favorite lines, but one of my all time favorite is Giamatti's going through the entire tasting process. They go all the way through it. And then he's like, strawberry. Yeah, strawberry. Are you chewing gum? And then it just does a smash edit right into another scene. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it. Cause it's just...
Sorry, I love that too.
Oh yeah, it's the best. Are you chewing gum?
Well, like, because he also, like, right before, he's just like, so when do we drink it? And he goes, now. And and Giamatti's just like takes this like small sip and starts aerating in his mouth, and then Church is just like, and just downs it in one thing. Yeah, oh man. I mean, okay, but you're going on the humor. It is super funny, but even right in the beginning, it gives you this feeling, especially kind of like it immediately tells you the character of Paul Giamatti by just showing you. There's not a lot of dialogue at all in the beginning, but it really gives you so much of who he is. I mean, when he gets awoken by a knock at the door to tell him to move his car, and he's in that kind of dilapidated apartment, and he's got kind of an okay looking car, and he's got to obviously move it. But he goes back and he freaks out and is calling like, "Oh, I'm running out the door." And then what? He decides to shower, use the bathroom, floss, all this different stuff. And then I love when he goes to like Starbucks or the coffee shop, and he's like, "Oh, would you like, your usual?" He's like, "Yeah. Oh, but I'm in a rush. So if you could get to go." And also the New York Times. Oh, and a spinach croissant or whatever, like something like that. Like, it's like you are in no rush to really. No,
this
guy
doesn't move for anybody. No. And there is I think there is an establishing shot at the very beginning where you see his profession, which is basically an English teacher.
Yeah, or something like that. So.
Yeah, so you realize, okay, this guy's not, once you realize he's an aspiring writer later, it's like, yeah, things are not in a good state for this guy. Yeah. And that's the only thing that makes me as a viewer empathize with him at all, is just more of his, I guess, status in life. But Payne plays a huge trick on the viewer by making you feel sorry for him, all the way up into the point where Church reveals that he was the one that cheated on his wife. Mm-hmm. Like he's talking about his ex. He's like, but you're forgetting about all the time she made you feel small. Yep. Isn't that why you had the affair with whoever, Julia or something like that? And it's like, oh, that was a huge moment. The first time I saw this movie, I was like, what? Yeah. It just totally, I don't really have much empathy for this character now at all. Like he's pretty much made the bed he's in. Mm-hmm. And you're right. He does horrible stuff like steal money from his mother. Yeah. Lie to people. Very selfish. I mean, both characters are very selfish. Yeah. In this film. The bright little sinner in this film is Virginia Madsen's Maya. Maya's the only one. I guess Stephanie's not a bad character either, because she doesn't know she's duped. She's completely duped. Like she's like, yeah. By the way, like when the credits roll, I kind of was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, he went up to Maya's house. Let's say she takes him back. They're never hanging out with Stephanie ever again. Stephanie's never gonna. Oh man. Well, so with Stephanie, also the interesting thing, working on the set, Thomas Haden Church had to have those sex scenes with Sandra Oh, who at the time was married to, that's right, the director, Alexander Payne. Really? Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awkward. That's gotta be. And they were divorced right afterwards. Pretty much. She's like 2 years later. Yeah. Well, they were only married for 3 years. Yeah. So not too long, but I agree with you. Like, the Virginia and Sandra did great jobs, and their characters were definitely much more. I mean, I could listen to Madsen talk about wine, her character talk about wine, of like how she experiences it, what she loves about it. Like it was one of those moments where like I try to point to other people of like, this is why I like wine. Like this is the enjoyment process of it, of like, her monologue's incredible. Yeah. But she's like, I think about how all the people that grew the grapes and how so many of them now are probably like passed away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's got such a nice timbre to her delivery. Like she's always had kind of a smokier voice to her. Mm-hmm. And people forget how good of an actress she's been around a long time. I remember when I was a kid, she was in the original Dune movie as the princess. Yeah. Very young, and was in kind of in demand in the 80s. And then, you kind of, Hollywood's just so unforgiving with actresses, and you age out of these roles and then they don't have anything for you.
Yeah.
Until you're much older.
Yeah, it's true.
I
do like the fact that the character that Thomas Hayden Church played kind of mimicked his own life, because he was already doing a ton of voiceover work anyways and kind of being out of the on-camera world when he got this role and was kind of doing this role. So it's kind of like, art imitates life kind of a thing, which was really interesting.
Yeah, when he does those
the different voices. And he's
so
still living
funny.
up from
It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
He's still living up his, I was on the soap opera a long time ago, know? So, yeah.
But the actress, the waitress, the actress is so good that she's like, no way. No way.
Oh, this was, So it was, I do really enjoy this film. There's been a couple of wine films that have come out that I've liked just as much, if not some, maybe a little bit more. Less about, I think this is the much better story and like dialogue than the others, but the other ones are maybe a little more focused on wine, which
like Bottle Shock.
Yeah, like exactly like Bottle Shock is what I'm trying to.
Yeah, Bottle Shock's solid.
Yeah, it's solid, but I would say, if in regards to wine, it's definitely better than the two. But I would say, in regards to an actual movie and story, this is definitely the superior film in that regard. I mean, one, again, you have Paul Giamatti in it. It's going to be fantastic. Who plays this character to a T? Like, but this is kind of his bread and butter. This kind of like American fiction style, like down on his luck, person who is dealing with stuff. Heck, it's even like in his character in The Holdovers.
Well, this is why we kind of bashed The Holdovers, was we felt like this had already been tread. Like this road had already been walked. And it wasn't that The Holdovers was a bad film. It's just, so this is a good example of something that I believe in film, and it's true in sports, and sports does a better job of it. If you're the first guy to hit 600 home runs, like it's going to be the biggest deal that you hit 600, and then there'll be a guy that comes in behind you and does it, but he's the second guy to do it, right?
Yeah.
Or some record, the 4-minute mile, whatever it is, it's the line in the sand. Movies, it's more nuanced of like the first of whatever it is, right? And there's movies that kind of fall in that line. For Payne, this feels like the first really good mix of like a drama, a comedy. You've got Giamatti, and then I just feel like he was trying to do like a sophomore album with The Holdovers. And it made no sense to me that the sophomore album like got all this additional praise.
Yeah.
It's like rated higher on IMDb and it got more nominations. It's like, and I think it's the inferior product personally. Yep. I find Miles infinitely more nuanced and interesting than
Hunman. Paul Hunman.
I find him infinitely more interesting as Miles. Like, I guess I'm using this as an opportunity to bang on The Holdovers again, but I just don't get it. Like, it's a good film. I enjoyed it, but I still don't understand the hype on that movie.
Yeah.
It's preference. It's a preference.
Yeah. And, it could be one of those things. If you saw The Holdovers first and then saw Sideways, maybe you'd feel differently.
I think that's what happened. I don't think that many people saw this movie.
The Holdovers or Sideways?
Sideways.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
The box office would
disagree.
Say different. Yeah. I mean, the budget was like $16-17 million, and it did $110 million at the box office.
Really? It made that much money?
Yeah.
That's a smash for this kind of movie, like R-rated.
It was a smashing success. I mean, think about the effect it had on the wine industry.
And it was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, and he did win Best Adapted Screenplay for it. So maybe they're just giving him his flowers again for The Holdovers. Which is fine. Fine.
And I understand, like, he's making something that is a period piece, shooting it like less like a period piece and more like a movie that came out at that time with The Holdovers. Like, it doesn't, like, as much as it is a period piece, like, I think it was meant to feel like, oh, this was a lost movie from the 70s that we didn't know about. Now we're releasing, like, kind of that's the aspect that I'm kind of taking it the way he shot at, the cameras he used, those kind of things. Whereas this is definitely much more focused on just the story and the characters as opposed to how it looks. I mean, obviously, like there's less forethought of trying to force how it looks on it, and more of like, hey, this location looks beautiful. Let's use this as the picnic spot. Yeah. Or let's go here. I will say they did a fantastic job at the hitching post, whoever the location scout is, because Laura and I went there multiple times, and I will say their Pinot Noir is quite good. But I will say they make that bar look so much bigger than it is in real life. Like we get there, it's like tiny. It's so small. And I was like, this does not feel like the movie.
Wide angle lenses.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I was like, I almost feel like did they just recreate it on a set and not actually use the space? But no, they shot there. They actually did. But it definitely does not. When you walk in that place and you sit down, you're like, this does.
It's like those it's like those real estate photos they shoot on the super wide angle lens. Which I can tell. I'm like, man, they're making that room look huge.
And it's not that big. No. There's so much hilarity in it. I love just the small moments, especially when Giamatti's by himself, when Thomas Hayden Church's character is like off with Sandra Oh's character, with Stephanie or whatever. And like, he's just sitting in the hot tub grading papers, just like just this downtrodden life of, like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. He just goes in some random time and like the breakfast buffet is pretty much done. And he just pours himself coffee from like the dregs of what's left in the pot. And it's just like, man, your life sucks, buddy.
But again, he basically fulfilled that. Like he was responsible for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. It was his own fault that he did all of that.
They even throw comedy in, like in moments that should be either neutral or like sort of, like when he's like, hey, do you want to read my novel? She's like, sure.
Yes,
he just hands her like four giant boxes, and she's like, oh, okay, thanks. But there's really cool Payne's a master storyteller, because I'll give you a perfect example in the simplicity of how efficient he is with his storytelling. There's that scene where he hands her the manuscript and her car goes left and his goes right, and then they use that same angle again, and
one car goes left.
Car goes left. It's simple, but it's like, that's a master at work.
Yeah. It really hits too. Like I can tell you, someone who, doesn't know it or doesn't see it, I can really feel that of like, oh, it's only one car and it's going to her house. Like it's huge. It that callback shows much more how, not momentous, but how it's just very effective and getting a whole lot of information across in just a shot.
It's like the culminating moment of the evolution of their relationship to that point anyway, when things were like going well. Mm. And I will say that not every director is able to smoothly in a window of time, let's say like 45 minutes or an hour, take you from Maya and Miles meeting to him going home with her, and having it feel like a natural kind of evolution on the relationship. And it's sort of weird here, because I don't know how many days like they're supposed to, like, do they spend a week up here, up there?
Yeah,
it's just like over the course of a week.
Yeah.
So it felt like really pretty natural and I think a lot of it's the edit. The edit's really good. But like I compare it to like a Star Wars prequel with Anakin and like Amidala, like the clunky nature of them. Like it's just almost impossible to watch. Like that's the difference here of nuance and subtlety in the direction of being able to like convince you as the viewer that these two characters are like falling for each other. Obviously it goes sour later, but Jack's responsible for that. So, and Miles covering for him. Yeah. I mean, that's really what it was, is like, when were you going to tell me? He's just sitting there on that blanket too.
Yeah. Just
enjoying the day. And he's just like, well, I was going to tell you.
I love that he's still carrying everything as he's going to the car or whatever. She's just storming off. He's like, no, really?
Oh yeah. That moment where he blows it is just hysterical. He's just so comfortable. Like you feel for the guy a little bit because he's on that picnic blanket and he's just enjoying the day and he's so comfortable that he's just like, oh no, we have to be back, blah, blah, blah for the rehearsal. What?
No. But then I love that the straight faced he is when the two of them were in the hot tub and by the two of them, Haden Church and Giamatti are in the hot tub. He's just like, how did Maya find out about the wedding? It's like, oh, we must have told Gary at the hitching post, the bar. And he's like, okay, how did he know it was Saturday? We didn't bring that up. He's like, I don't know. It's just like the worst
Jack
line.
Is not the sharpest knife in the drawer at all.
Just this terrible, terrible lie that he's just like, again, they're not good friends to each other at all in the least. And then we get this all too, like the fact that when Giamatti's kind of complaining about him into Maya, and it's just like, he's just my San Diego University freshman roommate.
Yeah, like San Diego State. Yeah,
San Diego State, yeah. Freshman roommate. And it's just like, wow. You have gone this far together, being this selfish. Maybe, hey, maybe you guys are a pair made in heaven.
No, it's one heck of a script.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love how he again, going back to some of the comedy of Giamatti talking about how this week's all about Haden Church's character and just like, Jack, it's all about you. I'm going to send you out for the style. And of course, then he stopped in Oxnard at his mom's place to celebrate, like just the worst.
Yeah.
This is a terrible friend. I can just think that like, if we went to my bachelor party and we're like, oh, we're going to, stop and, see my mom, or my family for a night or whatever. It's like, no, I love your parents, but I'm like, but buddy, we're going to my bachelor party weekend.
I think he stopped there for the cash.
Oh yeah, he's definitely dead.
Yeah.
Which also makes him not a likable character in a lot of sense too. Funny movie, lots of drama. I do like the open-ended nature of the ending where you can infer what you want kind of from it. And that's definitely a change from the book, apparently. In the book, apparently, it was very poignant of how it ended, of like whether Maya took him back or not.
Oh, okay.
And so this is kind of a, make up your own, kind of like the spinning top from Inception of just like, it's the viewer, what you want to take from it.
Yeah. This is kind of a heavily rewatched film in our house.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like
Gwen really loves this. She loves the wine too.
Of course. Yeah.
But it really makes her laugh. Like our senses of humor are a little bit different, but like this movie, more than a lot of them, we're definitely on the same page with like the hilarity of it all, just the absurdist,
just the absolute craziness that ensues.
Well, do you have any parting words of wisdom on Sideways?
No,
20 years old, man. It's blown my mind. This movie.
Goodness.
I feel so old.
This is one of the movies that my father and I first had a conversation about. Like we had talked about some stuff that he introduced me to. I have a very different taste in movies, but I think I was like, hey, you need to go see this. This is about wine. And he liked it a lot less than I did, but he did also enjoy the wine aspect of it. And so it still gets brought up occasionally in conversation between us.
Yeah. It's got some of the best use of subtext in a script I've ever seen, especially when Maya asks Miles why he likes Pinot so much, and that he is Pinot. Yeah. Thin-skinned, needs some coaxing for his, temperamental, it's beautiful writing. Yeah. And then obviously Giamatti's delivery of that.
He's absolutely a talent when it comes to that.
And that's what a lot of lesser movies is. Their problem is they have no subtext at all. Mm-hmm. And it isn't that every scene needs it, but your really big scenes have to have a more meaning running underneath the dialogue than just whatever the words are. And there's, it just takes time to develop that as a writer, I think. But this might be a better script than it is a movie. Like when I kind of think about it. And that's not a knock on the movie. I just think the script is like very taut and just really, really high level stuff. So, well, we appreciate everybody listening to us converse on Sideways. If you haven't watched this one in a while, pop it on. The laughs are pretty much endless. and it has its poignant moments too, but I watch it mainly for the laughs and the wine. So we'll be back at it as always next week with another installment of the podcast. We appreciate you listening. Coming close to probably 80 episodes at this point, and
ridiculous. Wow.
We're having fun with it still, so
Absolutely.
we'll keep on trucking.
Thanks, everybody.